Hello everybody, Brad Warner from Region Weather Live, and as you can see already, we've got snow moving in from this winter storm that's going to be affecting our region and going to be strengthening actually as we get into Tuesday as it moves across parts of Minnesota. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. You can see that snow already beginning to move into northwestern parts of North Dakota at this time here, 9 o'clock Central Time Monday night. In fact, roadways across northwestern parts of North Dakota already have reporting some ice and compacted snow. And we take a look at some of these cameras. Yeah, not looking good already. That good old snowfall beginning to take place across northwest North Dakota, and that's expected to move eastward, more so south and east through time and into Tuesday. So yeah, it's already on its way. So the snowier part of this storm system essentially going to be dipping south and then clipping back up to the north and east as we go through Tuesday. And so far what the National Weather Services have done across the area has issued a winter storm warning here from the Lakes country, including Brainerd down not quite to St. Cloud. St. Cloud has a winter storm watch currently, but otherwise from Little Prairie or Little Falls, Long Prairie up including Deer River, Grand Rapids, and of course Duluth and Grand Marais and Ely as well. Zooming back out or going south just a little bit, like I said, a winter storm watch continues across St. Cloud, Glenwood, Morris, just because some of that heavier snow could just dip a little bit further to the south. So it looks like they're keeping that winter storm watch in place. Otherwise, areas that had the winter storm watch across the region have now been replaced with a winter weather advisory. A little curious in a way, just because some of these areas across North Dakota could receive a fair amount of snowfall, but nevertheless, at this point, whatever criteria they go by the National Weather Service, I guess they felt that they're going to change it to a winter weather advisory. So that does include the Minneapolis area, of course, Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, and Dickinson and Williston as well. All right, timing wise with the storm system, there we are around midnight here tonight. That snow beginning to move more so into the James River Valley, kind of touching that Devil's Lake area by this point. It continues some rain across southeastern parts of Minnesota, and then maybe a little bit of a mix here and there as it transitions across southwest and south central parts of North Dakota with some rain further south down into South Dakota. Now, as we move this along and get to about 6 a.m. on Tuesday, that snow begins to move into northwest parts of Minnesota. We do have some heavier bands once in a while that do form as we go out through Tuesday. In particular, as I'll show you once we get a little more into Minnesota. But nevertheless, even starting at this point at 6 a.m., we might have a little band of heavier snow just beginning to take place across southeast parts of North Dakota. So we're kind of talking in that Ellendale, Oaks area, maybe around Aberdeen, probably just north of there. Some light to moderate a little bit further back still at this time Tuesday morning. Once we get to about the noon time on Tuesday, those snowfall totals really begin to ramp up, and this is really when this storm really kind of gets cranking here by Tuesday around noon and on through the remainder of the afternoon. Again, you can see that transition, maybe a little sleet in between, but still rain for the most part across southern parts of Minnesota. That snow begins to taper off across northwestern parts of North Dakota, but ultimately noon time frame right in through here, that's going to be the worst area on Tuesday. Once we get into Tuesday evening, this is actually around 3 p.m. here. Some really heavy snowfalls now taking place across Detroit Lakes, getting into that Brainerd area. So across the Lakes country, central parts of Minnesota here at 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Once we get into 6 p.m., the heavier snow now begins to move into Duluth, that transitional area across northern parts of Wisconsin, but otherwise continues to be rain across southeastern parts of Minnesota. But we're starting to get some of that snow beginning to wrap around the backside, possibly including Sioux Falls, getting a little bit of light snow and still back up into that Fargo area. But ultimately behind that, that high pressure begins to move in and dry things out already once we get into Tuesday evening. Now moving on to about 9 p.m. here, Tuesday night and midnight Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. That snow, that heavier snowfall now across east and northeastern parts of Minnesota, and really gets cranking across northern parts of Wisconsin. Normally I don't talk about Wisconsin, but we do get a fair amount of people from Wisconsin that wind up tuning into this channel. But so I'll just say, those of you on the South Shore along northern parts of Wisconsin, you guys are going to get nailed with some heavy snows and some lake effect snows, where we're talking about 20 inches of snow in some parts along the southern shores of Lake Superior. Once we get to 6 a.m. Wednesday, most of the snow, especially the heavier snow, has moved off. We got a little bit of light stuff across the east and some heavy stuff still across southern parts of Lake Superior. And then we continue on, though, through the afternoon hours, or going into the afternoon hours. That snow pretty much ended across Minnesota, but we still got some tight isobars, which means we'll probably still have some stronger winds continuing on throughout the afternoon on Wednesday. And here's your updated snowfall map. I included this red area 6 to 12, again across southern or central parts of Minnesota, reaching up into the North Shore, and then also including, of course, parts of northern Wisconsin, and then also added this 10 to 20 inch mark across southern shores of Lake Superior. Also kind of added an area here, possibly some higher amounts. I don't know about 12 inches, but maybe 6 to 10 inches here across southeast North Dakota, northeast South Dakota. Within this region here, we could get a little bit heavier snows. It looks like it really gets ramped up around there, like I said, later in the mornings before it takes off and moves eastward and really begins to dump snow across the central parts of Minnesota throughout the afternoon. Otherwise, with the main track of snowfall, we're looking at 5 to 7 here, all across the purple, so that does include Williston. Just touches Bismarck, maybe Minot as well. It's just kind of on the fringes of those two towns, so you can figure around the 5 to 6 inch mark for Bismarck and Minot. Comes down through Watertown, just north of the Twin Cities. More than likely, you know, I'm kind of going with that heat island effect with that 5 to 7 mark, keeping that just north of the Twin Cities area. But I did dip down to 2 to 5, just a little bit further south than I had before. So that will include the Minneapolis and St. Paul and the surrounding areas. So I kind of upped the amounts there to say 2 to 5, possibly down in the Twin Cities area. The other thing I did was shave back just a little bit of this snowfall here on both the 5 to 7 and 2 to 5. This looks like kind of a narrower band in through here, and a little bit drier, and maybe a little more, a little warmer, a little bit further to the south, where we're not really expecting that snowfall to accumulate. So I shaved off some of the higher amounts there. The other thing I wound up doing is taking this 2 to 5 inch mark and dipping it just a little bit further south. Right now it looks like Grand Forks is probably going to be in that 2 inch mark, so I cut that back just a little bit there as well. To give you a little better idea on timing, I've got this map here, and I'll also have this on my social media sites, Facebook, X, and I'll put it on the YouTube page as well. But everything in this light blue area, it's going to be essentially overnight right on up into 6 a.m. Most of this area up here in a little bit further to the east is going to be on the lighter side still at that 6 a.m. time frame. And then between 6 a.m. and noon, these areas in the blue, snow will begin to expand across this area. And then between noon and 6 p.m. Across a little bit further south, just kind of clipping the Twin Cities at this point. I think before 6 p.m. Those temperatures will remain warm enough still to where everything's going to be rain down there across the south and east, and then a little bit snow still here across northern parts of Minnesota. And then through the overnight hours, Tuesday night going on into Wednesday morning, that wraparound snow begins to take place, and the remainder of Minnesota should see snow through the overnight hours. And so once again, kind of drawing that main band, that main area of concern as far as the snowfall goes. something like that. That's kind of the heavier band. And we're going to overlay that with the wind gusts here as we get into Tuesday morning. Again, we do also have, by the way, a high wind warning here down across southwestern parts of South Dakota. That's going to expand. There's also a high wind watch for southeast parts of South Dakota. But look at this again, like I kind of mentioned with the last video, we're looking at wind gusts of 60 miles per hour. I mean, we're talking about some thunderstorm damaging type of winds down there across parts of South Dakota. So it's going to be dangerous to travel, especially if you have a high profile vehicle. Those garbages, they're going to be blowing away. So make sure you have them secured or somewhere where, those garbages won't go anywhere. As we get into a little bit later in the afternoon and into the evening Tuesday night, this is around 6 p.m. Those wind gusts now begin to get going, especially across this triple point here of North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota. Gusts of 40 miles per hour. So not only do we lay down a good chunk of snow, but we're also going to be seeing some blowing and drifting and reduced visibilities down there. It's going to be beginning to become a mess here by the time we get especially into Tuesday evening. We already put down a good amount of snow by this point, and now we're adding the winds on top of it. Midnight, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, those 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts begin to move more into Minnesota. This is Wednesday morning around 6 a.m. Again, 30, 35, maybe some 40 mile per hour wind gusts. It looks like the real stronger stuff stays just south of the worst area, but nevertheless, you're still looking at some blowing and drifting with this. Your roads are not going to be very nice when you wake up Wednesday morning. Those winds continue into the afternoon hours, some 40, 45 mile per hour winds across the North Shore, certainly 40 mile per hour winds across the South Shore. And then once we get into Wednesday evening at 6 p.m., some of those winds begin to slack off a little bit further to the west, but we're still talking 35 miles per hour. Definitely could see some blowing and drifting still. It's not really until we get into Wednesday night, this is midnight, once those winds begin to die off. Now, as for that secondary system going on into the weekend, unfortunately, the models are still really all over the place. So this is the American model here going into Friday night. Some snow across the Dakotas and Minnesota. Some pretty decent snows across South Dakota and on into southern parts of Minnesota through the overnight hours Saturday night on into Sunday. And it really lingers through Sunday and going on into Monday. But that is the American model. Don't always trust it quite that far out. And unfortunately, at this point, I don't really trust the European model as well, because it's kind of been all over the place with this secondary system. This model was a little more aggressive with this storm when we looked at it last night. But now as we take a look at it here, this is Friday going on into Saturday. And into Sunday and Monday, it doesn't really bring anything across southern parts of our area. So models really having a hard time agreeing on what's going to happen over the course of the weekend. If we want a tiebreaker model, we can take a look at the Canadian model, and it kind of seems to agree, at least at the moment, with the European model, which is basically a big nothing burger at this point through the weekend. But we'll keep an eye on it to see if anything changes there. Just keep that in mind that if you're traveling back from grandma and grandpa's or mom and dad's or whatever this weekend, just keep an eye on the potential of some more snow moving in, particularly across South Dakota and southern Minnesota. One thing I didn't mention on the last forecast are the cold temperatures that, of course, are expected to filter in behind the storm systems that are moving through. Been well advertised by pretty much most everybody out there, but this is Thursday. This is high temperatures for Thursday, and ultimately going to struggle to get above freezing as far south as Pierre on up into Buffalo and Sioux Falls. Otherwise, everybody's going to be in the 20s north of that. In fact, as we go on into the weekend, things are going to get even colder. You can see that line drives even a little bit further to the south. Areas across the north are going to struggle to get out of the teens for high temperatures. And Saturday looks even worse, as, geez, we're going to struggle to maybe even get out of the single digits for highs across parts of northern North Dakota, teens and 20s elsewhere. Then Sunday, a little more of the same, maybe a little bit of a warm up across parts of the north, but otherwise we're still looking at those highs still in the teens and the 20s. So there you have it, folks. We've been very lucky when it comes to storms so far this fall, but you knew it was going to happen eventually, and boy, you betcha it had to come over Thanksgiving week, wouldn't you know? But hopefully everybody has planned accordingly. By the time you get into Thanksgiving Day itself, everything should be good. The roads should be better by then. So hopefully you're able to make it to wherever you want to go to eat that Thanksgiving meal. Keep an eye on things as you get into Saturday and Sunday if you're traveling home from anywhere for the potential of maybe a little storm system moving across South Dakota and on into southern Minnesota. I'll have the live stream up as we go a little bit later into tonight and for sure into Tuesday. I was hoping to get it updated and looking a little nicer, but we'll just kind of let it run as it is. And if anybody's got any questions, feel free to type it in on the chat down below or beside you, depending on if you're on your phone or your computer. Either way, ask them questions there and I'd be happy to answer them. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody have a good day and happy Thanksgiving.